Cast of Wonders 380, October 13th, 2019. This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome! Episode 380 for October 13th, 2019. I'm Andrew K. Ho, Assistant Editor for Cast of Wonders and your host for today's episode. You're listening to Little Wonders, Cast of Wonders thematic flash fiction collections. Today we're bringing you two kind and cozy stories because comfort is universal. Our first story is Taking the Nine to the Last Shop by Craig Robert Saunders, a Cast of Wonders original. Craig Robert Saunders is the author of Field of Heroes, Hush and Lore, space opera, space fleet, and space marine stories. Some of his favorite modern science fiction comes from Neil Asher, Andy Remick, Ian M. Banks, Dan Abnett, and Richard Morgan. As a reader, he's a sucker for a great robot or a smart ship. His proudest moment to date is rare praise from Andy Remick for his novel, Field of Heroes, which Andy described as a powerhouse of action and war with an intrinsic dark humor reminiscent of Ian M. Banks. As Craig Saunders, he's written around 50 novels and novellas, including Deadlift, Vigil, and A Stranger's Grave. As Craig R. Saunders, he penned the 7-book fantasy saga of the World of Rife. Since his first novel acceptance, Reign, over 10 years ago, his short fiction has been published in periodicals, magazines, podcasts, best of anthologies, and his novellas have won a couple of awards. He's been a top 100 best-selling horror and science fiction author on Amazon, but it isn't the New York Times, so he doesn't make a big song and dance about it. Craig publishes science fiction with Severed Press. His latest horror, Red Ice Run, co-written with Ryan C. Thomas, sold out through Thunderstorm Books. Due next are Xenophobia, science fiction, and It Always Rains When the Circus Comes to Town, horror. He also publishes novels independently under the Dark Fable Books labels and considers himself a hybrid author. Craig writes in a shed and blogs about writing and his ongoing battle with schizophrenic affective disorder, and he is a fierce advocate for mental health rights. He's always happy to talk over at www.craigr.saunders.blogspot.com and Twitter at Grumblesprout. This story is narrated by our very own Catherine Inskip. Catherine teaches astrophysics for a living and spends her infrequent spare time populating the universe with worlds of her own. She is a mother to 2 boys and enjoys chaos, water fights, tree climbing, and thwarting plans for world domination. Catherine is addicted to chocolate and Japanese logic puzzles, narrates for a variety of podcasts, and wishes she'd started slush reading decades ago. You can read her stories here at Cast of Wonders and also at the Dune Steve and Luna Station Quarterly, though you might need a functional time machine for some. Follow her at ChesneyCat on Twitter. And now, we've a tale to tell.
Taking the Nine to the Last Shop by Craig Saunders, narrated by Catherine Inskip. The Last Shop Before the Fog is my favourite shop of all. It has candy, which is best. It sells shrimp, which never ever goes off, krill, newspapers, mops and buckets, and air packets you can open that tickle your tentacles, just like the popping candy, which Grandma lets me have even though she hates the sound of the air packs and the poppers. She likes the hard-boiled sweets. They have what seems like endless rows of jars of those behind the counter. You can buy things for the house there, and things for dull days when the seas are hard and rough and you can't go out, or when the fog's so heavy it squashes you up so you can't see above your parapet, and all you can do is draw yourself inside and listen to your mother muttering, and feel the sway of Grandma moving underneath you both. I'm a 9, and Grandma's like a 7 billion or something. We're broodings. Mum, me, we all come from Grandma, and we've got her glow. And in the village, people say we're beautiful. But we all come from Grandma and live on Grandma's belly, so it's not saying much. I don't think she's beautiful, and she's probably not actually a 7 billion. But when she's out, her tentacles way above her parapet, she's a grand sight. I've only got 9 tentacles, and to me it always seems hers are uncountable, especially when they're all reaching up, and when they're out like they are now, you just know things are going to go the way she wants. She says she's taking the 9 to the shop. Me. And my mama sighs and says, OK. It's just the bus. The bus clacks, bobs up and down, and little Grandma tuts, and her mouth puckers as though she's unhappy with the way the bus bobs up and down. But she's always got a smile for me, and Grandma never gets angry at me about anything. Mama says I've got Grandma wrapped around my little column, but I don't know what that means, not quite, because I live on Grandma's belly, so that's a stupid sort of expression, isn't it? Grandma says there used to ought to be hundreds of buses going this way, that way. Now there's just the one bus. It goes from the village, along the green, to the shop. There isn't a school or a doctor's, and the endless things Grandma tells me there used to ought to be. Not long now till I'm going away, she says often. Mama cries, but it's not like Grandma's dying. She'll still be Grandma. She'll just be smaller, like a baby version of her. Won't be Mama and it won't be me. My Grandma's pretty cool. She makes tiny grandmas. That's awesome. I can't make tiny me's. One day I will, she says. I don't believe her, not quite, but I sort of like the idea. Little me's. They'll leave, though, those smaller parts of myself, and that makes me sad. I don't know how I feel about Grandma going away, though. She told the whole village, and most of them understand, but I don't, not really. It's worse when the fog's squashy, but then Grandma bobbles me up and down and up and down, and it's like rocking and it comforts me. Mama's not big enough to wobble me on her belly yet. I think she's jealous she can't, but I'm not really sure about that either. Mama's quite attached to Grandma. I guess I'm further away. Mama understands why Grandma's going, and she doesn't like it. Me? I don't understand. It's complicated, like why popping candy pops. I don't get it, but that doesn't make it less awesome. I'm 9. I'm not expected to be super smart, but I'm going to the shop, and that's good enough. When Grandma comes to get me, it's just a little one of her. She's just like Grandma, just like me. Same stripes, mostly flat but tall when she wants, and even though it's just a baby of her, she still has more tentacles than me. Plus she's Grandma, and she's really great, even if she's just a tiny thing sliding over her own belly, me in tow, to the bus stop. We go into the shop, and there's a bell which rings, and Gladstone comes out with 3 smiles on their faces. "Grandma," says Gladstone. "Gladstone?" says Grandma, her tone stern, an ululation that makes me giggle because she's only tiny but she's still so bossy. She says Gladstone's handsy and to watch out, but I don't really know what that means. And Gladstone doesn't have hands, they have orifices and waving parts, and their colour's just the same as Grandma's after all. Gladstone sucks a newspaper into their orbuli, and it comes out with a brib-bib sound, neat as you like, into Grandma's terminal at the end of one of her tentacles. She never drops anything. But it's not Gladstone's trick which impresses me, but more that I thought it a funny sound. And while Grandma might call Gladstone handsy to me, she says it's not polite to make fun of people's brib-bibs and such. I can't help it, though. Cool spit, Gladstone. Good brib-bib-bibbing. They grants me 7 smiles, and Grandma a glare. But the word makes my orifice flap and tickle a bit, and that makes me laugh too. She can't stay mad at me for long. Gladstone, that's another matter. The shop is at the end of the road. Beyond the shop, there's only the fog. Grandma says there used to ought to be thousands and thousands of roads every which way, but there aren't. The shop butts right up to the thick fog. We leave, I wave to Gladstone, and the bus is there outside. I've got sweets, she's got her paper. We're going home. Go on then, says Grandma. Hop on. I look at the bus, and it looks weird and wrong, and while I'm only a 9, I'm not entirely stupid. I'm Grandma's child after all. It looks weird because it's facing the wrong way. I tell Grandma. Never wondered how it turned round, says Grandma. Her smile's kind enough, but I feel she's taking me for a ride. Is this because I laughed about Gladstone? I say. I feel a tear rolling down my column and a childish shake begin. Don't be daft, says Grandma. You're a 9, aren't you? I nod. Well, time to stop being a baby. Go on, get in. Grandma, it's going toward the fog. Did you think Gladstone's was the only shop in the all of it? Yes, I say simply. She thinks about this. Maybe you did, she says, but it's not. Come on, the bus is leaving, and Fupa can't let it go till we get on. Poor old thing's not strong like they used to ought to be, and neither am I. We've got hard-boiled sweets, though, eh? My ears go cold with excitement. Might be a little fear in there somewhere too. But Grandma takes me under a bubble of mucus and comforts me like I'm all wrapped in a baby shoof. She makes the cooing, shimmery, soothing noises I like. Fupa lets go, and Grandma's tentacles slide around me, like she's holding me on, but Fupa's good at slinging the bus no matter what Grandma says. Am I expecting we'll just roll through the fog? Bob out and away, no more exciting than plopping without ceremony through damp tendrils and into a simple adventure like looking out at a village green? Is that the fear? That it'll be anticlimactic? A big flop on a belly, like a trick when Mama said, "Do you want to cuddle?" but tickled instead. Like expectation dashed. Even a 9 understands how that feels. Maybe Grandma more than me. She probably knows disappointment very well. She's like a 7 billion. Maybe that's a bit of growing up, understanding the disappointments of others. One day, she says, you'll be a grandma. I don't believe her, of course. Why would I? I'm a 9, been to the last shop, and we've got hard-boiled sweets. I'm not thinking those thoughts. It isn't a disappointment, though. It's brilliance, pure brilliance. We hurtle out through the fog. It's not fog. It's just a shimmering wall. I grin and wibble and wobble, and tiny Grandma wobbles too, laughing and happy for my happiness, just like Grandma always is. It's weird. She's tiny, and we're both on the bus. And for some reason I feel like I want to look after her, and that's what's odd, I suppose. Then we drop, I scream, and we soar, and I whoop with crystal crisp joy. I pop my head out, finally, from the shoofy bed of mucus around me, and see. "Grandma," I say in my quietest voice, which Mama says I don't actually have. I do, I just use it very rarely. "What is that?" "That? That there's space. Now, see that? Behind, girl, see the shop?" We sit at the rear of the bus, and I turn, shimming up and up to make myself tall as I can, and peer backward. Gladstone's shop is there, but I see the road too, the village, home, Mother. She's waving her tentacles, and I wave back, shout out for her, but I don't know if she hears me all the way out here, or sees me where it's so bright and colourful. I fill all up with a feeling I never knew before. "Feel that?" she says. "What is it?" I say. "I don't know," says Grandma. "Isn't that the most magical thing?" Her smile's just as childlike as mine. I hold on to her again and look at the clouds, the glory of a vast black sea where other clouds bob upon it just like ours. I gawp at twinkling, distant lights, at the bright arms of twirling, dancing starfish doing cartwheels through the space, the happy gravid mamas and grandmas, the 9s, the 56s, all the children and other things I don't know, some just as young as me and some wonders which seem far, far older than even Grandma. Not 7 billions or something, but numbers I don't know, can't imagine. We lap aniseed twists and sweet krill crunches in our mouths as the bus goes right on by 1,000 things. I don't need the toilet, and I'm not thirsty. Grandma beside me, we look out at the thing called space. It seems fragile and expensive. A glittering sheet, like edible paper hung up in Gladstones, but sugary and huge and delicate too. And I worry someone careless might be thinking about a comic or a sweet or a trip to the last shop and not look where they were going and walk right through it and tear a hole big as me. "Grandma, what if we break it?" She shook her head. "Fupa's a bit flimsy between the lobes, but they can manage to drive a bus through space." I don't know how long we're out, but the aniseed twists and the krill crunch are all gone when Grandma rings the bell for our stop. "This is us," Grandma says to me. "Pick up your wrappers." I feel the bus slow, the nice feeling of sliding forward and back. Just a moment when I might go either way. "Can we just go on?" I ask. "Of course," says Grandma. "Near enough forever. But the bus has to stop, doesn't it? Fupa's not as young as you, baby." "Can we take the bus again, Grandma?" "Sure," she says, pleased, I think. Mama waits for us, her tentacles in and out as though she doesn't quite know what to do with them. But Grandma forestalls any telling off we might be due for being gone so long. "Daughter, she's a 9 and she's due, so don't squish yourself up like that. When you were a 9, my mother took you." "It was wonderful," I say. "Wonderful. There were—" Mother's column rises little by little. Even she can't be mad for long when I'm full of wonder like that and won't stop talking. The more I natter, the brighter she seems, and eventually she potters about the same as always. I pretend dinner is planets, and Mama's mouth orifice a shiny and slippery kind of space, which makes her shudder like it tickles. "I had the best 9, I say as I slip atop Grandma and nestle beside Mama. I go down that night sore from chatting, mostly to myself, while she bustles around and Grandma spreads contentedly beneath. As I drift, I think I hear them speaking. "Did she want to go, Mom?" "Do you?" asked Grandma. "Yes and no," said Mother. "Mom, do you?" "Yes and no," says Grandma. Me too, I think. It's so big. "I'll miss us," said Mother, and I feel a shift as Grandma hugs her, and that comforts me. Grandma snores, Mama budges up next to me, and sleep takes a long time while I stare up at the fog and have to use my imagination. It's not fog, though, only a wall, and there's always something the other side of a wall, like a little baby grandma, I think, when I wake. Baby grandma's gone, but the biggest part of her is still there, and I'm resting on her belly. I smile, snuggle back inside myself, and it's a good morning. The fog's not pushing in anymore. It's just hiding me away, like Grandma does, until I'm ready. For me to go, or her, I'm not sure, but I think going to the shop before that small Grandma left was important. Not like a birthday. A lesson in goodbye. A lesson in joy, too. I'm not sure why, because I'm only a 9. But I know it's true.
I'm going to share my notes on Craig's story when I saw it in our slush pile. This story is amazing. My goodness, if we don't take this story, please tell the author they are amazing. I'm tearing up right now. Yes, 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 yes. That's in all caps. I also wrote, I freaking love it, in all caps. In other words, I had a powerfully emotional reaction to Craig's story. Taking the 9 to the last stop is not an easy story to digest. It's surreal and non-traditional and experimental and takes narrative risks. It did receive mixed reactions from our editors because of its highly surreal quality. But that's the thing about story art, isn't it? There is no cookie-cutter model for stories. Non-traditional writing is risky. The chances for rejection are higher. But taking the 9 was unapologetically gutsy and, at least for me, pulled it off. I think it's best if I give my reading of what's going on in Craig's story. Imagine a species of massive, tentacled beings that reproduce by splitting into 2. One piece stays while the other gets sent into space to establish a new colony. Grandma is an ancient being with 7 billion tentacles. She's split to form Mom, who also split to form our little 9-tentacled narrator. Mom and our 9 aren't ready to split yet. They don't know if they want to journey into space. Now these beings live in a quaint little colony behind a glittering fog. We humans might think of this colony as a seaside village, but it's not really a village. And the one bus everyone takes to get around isn't really a bus to humans like us. Grandma can remember a time when there used to be many buses and many colonies across the stars, but not anymore. The older these creatures get, the more powerful they become, and they have to split themselves up. Mom is still too young to do it, and is still afraid. The narrator, who's a 9, also can't do it yet. But Grandma is a 7 billion. She's ready to split and explore the universe. She's going to create a little grandma to do so. But that little grandma can never return. Imagine that. You're going on an incredible journey, but you have to leave your loved ones behind. You have to leave your one granddaughter behind. So you take your granddaughter for a bus ride, not the one you usually go on, but a special one, just the 2 of you. You buy sweets and you spend the whole day together. Then you drop your granddaughter off, and after she's happily fallen asleep, you leave. Forever. It's a little like what we humans think of as death. Imagine this too. Before the moment of passing, you're allowed one last day with your loved ones. Then you depart. Forever. But wait, in our story, the original 7 billion grandma is still present. She's still there. Similarly, for us humans, those who pass on always leave their influence behind. we still sense the grandparents and parents and siblings and friends and children and spouses and whomever we've lost. So Craig's story is an incredible analogy for the death of a loved one, and how, when we lose a loved one, that person isn't completely gone. At the end of her story, our little Nine says it's a lesson in goodbye, a lesson in joy too. Our second story is The Ladybug in Flight by Bowie Takach. This was recorded live at Dublin, 2019, an Irish Worldcon.
It is good to be small. It is good to be many. 100, 1,000, 5,000. We swarm where we can find nourishment, and because we are constructs, nourishment is inorganic. We gobble up space crystals, we shine our beam of light on time crystals to get the process in motion, then feed on the oscillations. Do you know about symmetry breaking? These crystals have less symmetry than a glop of liquid. But of course, I'm just a tiny ladybug, my brain quasi-organic, my outer layers made of a curious alloy, my sentience forming from the swarm, and we are often hungry. There are entire ecosystems in space. Near the planets with nurseries where the large sentient ships grow, there is enough crystal crumble to support us so that the ships can feed on the output of our digestive processes. Preferably not on us. That's after they're grown. When they are growing, they feed on people. I am told that people like it. Sometimes we chance upon non-sentient ships, chunks of metal or plastic floating aimlessly. That's when we get to work. We know how to use an airlock if we find one. We know how to find breaches in the hull if we don't. If our swarm is big enough, we know how to circumvent conventional physics, teleport inside. Sometimes we find people alive, like you. Usually when we do, they don't attempt to talk. We are practiced at communicating without appearing to communicate. We are often not given the benefit of doubt. Unlike this time, and thus, now we are cheerful. I am inordinately happy when someone comments on my spots. You are a small human, but that's all right. When you grow up, the ships can feed on you, if you want to try. That's not the real reason why I guide you back to Alliance space. You can look around, but there's only one of me inside. The hull of your ship remains sturdy. We could not force our way in, and teleporting takes a lot of effort. If you can find the right camera output, you will see us swarming outside. I think we are beautiful, but you humans think your own non-sentient ships are beautiful. Clearly, our standpoints are different. But you like my spots. You might like this too. I am sorry the others are unconscious. You are an exception, maybe in more ways than one. Maybe the others won't like us. There is always an element of risk involved. It's also a lot of effort to guide a ship home, but we are likewise searching, and it might help us too to come along for the ride. We were all made by the empire long gone. We do not mourn empires. Their names show us the original intent behind creating them. We aren't invaders. We only entered the ship because we were worried for you. We aren't tasty. This you'll have to believe. Because I don't have any energy left to initiate my toxic spray, designed for emergency self-defense. It can use up 10% of our body fluids, and I already used up close to 20 just to come inside. I'm glad you don't want to eat me. I'm glad we can clear up misunderstandings, even if you don't understand all my words. You will remember me when you grow. Will you miss me? We miss them, all the people we met back in the day, even the humans. We liked knowing the people of the Silver Barrel. They also weren't strictly organic, or inorganic really. They had human shapes, but they could change. Into swarms even. This meant they could understand us. We miss them. Will you let me sit on your shoulder? I'm tired. I'm also searching for home. If I take you to your home, maybe you can help me find mine. Home is other people, I heard the humans say, or maybe I misunderstood. Yes, you're humans. We felt the vibrations through your ship's hull, and we have long since learned your language. If we hurry up, your other humans will probably be able to wake up again. In the meantime, I'll sit on your shoulder like this, and now you can sing me that song, the one you've been mentioning, about the ladybug in flight. I'll tell you the coordinates to input.
Welcome back. Home is other people, I heard your people say, the ladybug tells us. Or maybe I misunderstood. Bogey says that the ladybug misheard a quote from John Paul Sartre's play No Exit. Hell is other people. But maybe a little misunderstanding is to be expected from creatures as different as ladybug and human. Very different things, but those differences can help us see the world in a newer and better light. I love the way this story walks the reader through that very process. Before we even know that this is a second-person story, before we know that the human child exists, we're experiencing the ladybug the way they would, first as a thing of swarms and strange ideas and hunger. But for all its fearsome nature, it comes wrapped in beautiful prose, beautiful spots. And so we stay, and we listen. And because we stay, we start to understand its word choices and its motives, and we realize that it isn't harmful at all. And the human child goes through that exact same process and makes those same choices, from fear to wonder and to a kind of understanding. We can't always understand the alien, the foreign, the different, but if we react to those differences with wonder and curiosity, with an open heart and an open mind, we can still appreciate one another and come to understand at least a little bit. That understanding can bring us the chance to become something more, to help each other and do things together that we could never achieve on our own. Most of us are looking for similar things, after all. Someone we can talk to, and a place that feels like home. Because maybe hell is other people, but so is heaven.
Join us again next week. We love bringing you the best audio fiction week after week, but we can't do it without your support. Your donations pay our authors, our narrators, our servers, and our staff. Please consider supporting us with a monthly donation through either PayPal or Patreon. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts, request us on Spotify, and consider the stories we publish for award consideration. There are lots of ways you can help. Join the discussion on the EA forum, forum.escapeartist.net, or visit on Twitter @Cast of Wonders. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is a production of Escape Artists, Incorporated, and is brought to you by your host for today, Andrew K. Ho. Our editors, Marguerite Kenner and Catherine Inskip. Assistant Editor, Carissa Sluss. Associate Editors, Tanya Bezpalko, Amy Brennan, Alicia Caparasso, Trace Fontel, Alexis Goebel, William Hite Miner, Sean Proctor, Ray O, Susie Rodriguez, Emmy Smales, and Chris Tang. Audio producer, Jeremy Carter, and community manager, Danny Daly. Our episodes are released under the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can download or listen to the episode on any device you like, but you can't change it or sell it. The Little Wonders theme Neversus is by Alexyanov and available from Promo DJ or his Facebook page. Thanks for listening.